Family, let me tell you something. So many of us are out here waiting for somebody to tell us we're ready, waiting for somebody to see what God has already placed inside of us, waiting for the perfect moment to feel like enough. We scroll, we compare, we look at what everyone else is doing and wonder if we measure up. We think if we just get one more degree, one more connection, one more opportunity, then maybe we'll finally be qualified. But here's the truth that will change your life. You already carry what you've been searching for. God didn't send you here empty. He didn't design you half complete, hoping the world would fill in the blanks. From the very moment He breathed life into you, He packed you with everything you need to walk in your calling. The enemy loves to keep us distracted, always chasing something that makes us feel like we're finally enough. He wants you addicted to approval, stuck on someday, always waiting for somebody to affirm what God already stamped on your soul. But what if I told you that the strength you've been begging God for has already been given? You don't need to ask Him to make you more. You need to recognize that He already made you enough. When He created you, He didn't make a mistake. He didn't leave anything out. He knew the battles you would face, the storms that would rage, the nights you would cry, and He placed power inside you that those very battles could never take away. That's why you've survived things that should have broken you. That's why you're still standing when others counted you out. That's why even when you felt empty, something in you refused to quit. That wasn't luck. That wasn't coincidence. That was the power of God that He already deposited in you. And until you see that truth for yourself, you'll keep living small when you were created for something greater. You don't need another confirmation from people who can't see what God saw when He formed you. Sometimes the people around you will underestimate you, not because you're weak, but because your power threatens their comfort. They don't understand the weight you carry, the fire inside of you, the way God's hand rests on your life. But hear me, your destiny isn't in their hands, and your identity isn't in their mouths. You don't need their permission to walk in the fullness of who God made you to be. You've been approved by heaven, and that stamp doesn't fade. Think about it. David didn't look like a king when God anointed him. Gideon didn't look like a warrior when the angel called him one. Esther didn't look like a deliverer when she was chosen. They all had moments when the outside didn't match what God placed on the inside. But that didn't make their calling any less real. And neither does yours. You might not feel powerful. You might not feel equipped. But your feelings don't change the fact that God already gave you the power to stand, to rise, to conquer, and to endure. So stop waiting for someone else to tell you you're ready. Stop looking for signs in all the wrong places. Stop begging for doors that God already gave you the keys to. You don't need to chase after the world's stamp of approval when heaven already called you chosen. The miracle isn't out there somewhere. It's in you. It's in the way you keep getting up. It's in the way you keep loving when your heart's been broken. It's in the way you keep showing up when everything in you says, quit. That is power. That is resilience. That is divine strength wrapped in human skin. And I know sometimes it's hard to believe it. Sometimes the weight of what you've gone through convinces you that you're empty. But even in your weakness, the power of God is unshaken. Even in your uncertainty, His hand is steady. You don't need to become someone else to walk in power. You just need to finally believe what He already said about you. You are enough. You are chosen. You are equipped. You are not waiting on power to arrive. You are learning how to walk in the power that's already within you. So hear me tonight. Don't shrink. Don't hide. Don't keep searching for something that's already yours. Lift your head, square your shoulders, and walk, because you already carry what you've been searching for. See, when we think of power, we often think of something loud. We imagine fireworks. We imagine thunder. We imagine the kind of force that makes the whole world stop and stare. But can I tell you, walking in the power God gave you doesn't always look like that. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's steady. Sometimes it's the kind of strength nobody notices until they realize you made it through what should have destroyed you. Power isn't always about the volume. It's about being unshakable when life tries to knock you down. You've got to understand there is a difference between having power and performing power. Performing power is when we feel the need to show off, to prove to people that we're strong, that we're confident, that we've got it all together. But real power, the kind God gives, doesn't have to put on a show. Real power can walk into a storm and still rest. Real power can stand in the middle of chaos and refuse to lose peace. Real power doesn't need applause to keep going. It keeps going because it's rooted in something deeper than people's opinions. Think about Jesus on that boat, asleep while the storm raged around him. Everyone else was panicking, but he had peace. That's power. Not because the storm wasn't real, not because the waves weren't strong, but because he knew the authority he carried was greater than the storm that surrounded him. That's the same kind of power that's been placed in you. You don't have to match the chaos around you with chaos inside of you. You don't have to let fear be louder than faith. You don't have to let people's doubt shake your foundation. You can be calm, steady, unbothered because you know who holds your life. There's a maturity that comes when you realize you don't have to respond to everything. You don't have to fight every battle. You don't have to clap back at every word. You don't have to defend yourself to people who were never assigned to understand you. That's what unshakable power looks like. You stop wasting energy trying to prove yourself and start conserving energy to walk fully in what God called you to. Your power isn't in your noise. It's in your stability. And yes, there will be moments when life tries to convince you otherwise. Times when you feel like you're being tossed around by circumstances you can't control. Times when people walk away, when money gets tight, when your heart feels heavy. In those moments, the enemy whispers, if you were really strong, you wouldn't be feeling this. But hear me. You don't have to feel invincible to carry God's power. Even in your weakness, his strength is made perfect. Power isn't the absence of struggle. It's the presence of endurance. It's the ability to stand even trembling because you know you're not standing alone. Have you noticed how earthquakes expose the foundation of a building? Shaky ground will always reveal what's real. And the same is true for us. When the ground beneath you starts shifting, that's when your roots are tested. And if you've been building on the approval of people, on the security of money, on the comfort of circumstances, you'll crumble when those things move. But when you've been standing on the power God gave you, storms can come, winds can blow, but you will not break. You may bend, but you won't break. That's unshakable power. Some of you have been mistaking silence for weakness. Just because you're not clapping back doesn't mean you're powerless. Just because you choose peace over drama doesn't mean you're passive. Just because you've learned to walk away doesn't mean you're afraid. That's wisdom. That's restraint. That's maturity. And that's real power. Anybody can explode. Anybody can throw hands. Anybody can let anger take over, but it takes God's strength to stand still and know he is God. This world is loud. Social media is loud. Opinions are loud, but you don't have to match that noise to prove you're strong. Walking in power means you know who you are even when nobody else understands it. It means you don't lose yourself when the crowd changes. It means you don't let rejection, betrayal, or failure redefine what God already declared over your life. That kind of quiet, unshakable power is dangerous to the enemy because he can't manipulate someone who knows where their strength comes from. So stop looking for lightning bolts to prove you're powerful. Stop waiting for some dramatic sign to confirm what God already placed inside you. Power isn't always about moving mountains in one day. It's about waking up, showing up, and refusing to quit even when the mountain hasn't moved yet. It's about keeping your peace when the storm is loud. It's about holding your ground when everything around you is shaking. That is power, and it's already in you. So many of us carry this hidden belief that because we've been broken, because we've made mistakes, because we've fallen short, somehow the power God gave us has expired. We convince ourselves that the calling must have shifted, that the gift must have been revoked, that the anointing must have been lifted, simply because our story got messy. But can I tell you something? Brokenness doesn't cancel power. Failure doesn't erase God's deposit. Your scars do not strip you of his assignment on your life. In fact, it's often the cracks in your story that allow his light to shine through the brightest. We've been taught to wear strength like a costume, to act like nothing touches us, to hide the parts of us that don't look perfect. But God never asked for perfection. He asked for surrender. He never required flawless. He required willing. And if you think about it, some of the most powerful people in the Word were the ones with the messiest resumes. Moses was a murderer. Paul persecuted the very church he would later lead. Peter denied Jesus 3 times in his darkest hour. Yet God still used every one of them, not in spite of their brokenness, but through it. Their weakness didn't disqualify them. It became the very stage where God's strength was revealed. We live in a world that wants to throw people away as soon as they make a mistake, cancel them, silence them, act like they never had value. But God doesn't operate like people. He doesn't cancel what he created. He doesn't void his promises over your life because you slipped. He looks at your broken pieces and says, I can still use that. And if you let him, he will take what you thought was ruined and turn it into the very thing that carries your anointing. Some of you are sitting in silence because shame told you your voice no longer matters. Some of you are hiding your gift because guilt convinced you that you're not worthy to use it. Some of you are doubting your calling because life didn't go the way you planned. But let me remind you, broken crayons still color, a cracked vessel still pours, and a wounded soul can still carry the breath of God. Your mistakes may have changed your path, but they cannot cancel your purpose. Do you know why? Because God factored in your flaws before he ever called your name. He already knew the wrong turns you would take, the people you would trust that would betray you, the decisions you would regret, the tears you would cry. He already saw it all, and still he said, yes, you are mine. You are chosen. You are enough. Nothing about your brokenness shocked him. Nothing about your story disqualified you in his eyes. If anything, your brokenness makes you a better witness because now you can stand in front of people and say, I know what it feels like to fall, but I also know what it feels like to rise again. That's the kind of testimony that breaks chains. That's the kind of honesty that sets people free. When you stop pretending and start owning the fact that God's power is evident even in your scars, you give permission for others to believe they're not too far gone either. You become proof that he can take the ashes of a life and bring forth beauty. You become a living reminder that grace is real, that redemption is possible, that power is not erased by brokenness. It's revealed through it. So stop disqualifying yourself. Stop believing the lie that because you've been bruised, you can't still be used. Stop telling yourself that your history outweighs your destiny. God does his best work with broken material. He takes shattered hearts and makes them beat again. He takes ruined plans and redirects them into divine purpose. He takes people who thought they were finished and sets them on fire with new vision. That is the power you carry, not because you are flawless, but because you are willing to let him shine through the cracks. You don't have to hide your scars to be powerful. You don't have to erase your past to walk in purpose. Your brokenness is not your ending. It's the place where God's glory begins. One of the easiest traps we fall into is leaning too hard on people to validate us, to sustain us, to give us the strength we don't think we have. We borrow courage from their compliments, we borrow confidence from their applause, and we borrow direction from their approval. But the danger in building your strength on people is that people are fragile. People are inconsistent. People can love you one day and forget you the next. If the weight of your destiny depends on their opinion, then your walk will always be unstable. You cannot walk in the power God gave you if you're still leaning on someone else to hand you what he already placed inside of you. Think about it. How many times have you doubted yourself because someone didn't clap for you? How many times have you shrunk back because someone you trusted didn't see your vision? How many times have you settled for less because you thought their approval was the permission you needed? We've all been there. We've all tried to live off the strength of borrowed voices, hoping that if they believe in us, maybe we'll believe in ourselves too. But here's the truth. You don't need to attach yourself to people who can't carry your calling. The power in you isn't dependent on who validates it. It's divine, sealed, and unshakable. Sometimes the reason God doesn't let everyone affirm you is because he doesn't want you confusing their voice with his. If people could always lift you up, you'd start depending on them more than him. If every friend always understood your journey, you lean on them instead of his spirit. Sometimes the silence around you is intentional. Sometimes the rejection is protection. Sometimes the lack of applause is God making sure you realize that your worth isn't tied to claps. It's tied to his calling. And let's be honest, there are some weights people were never designed to carry. They weren't built to hold your destiny. They weren't equipped to understand your warfare. They weren't called to handle your breakthrough. That's why it hurts when you keep expecting them to. You're trying to hand over a spiritual assignment to a human who wasn't anointed for it. That's why they drop it. That's why they mishandle it. That's why they can't see what God saw when he chose you. It's not because you're not valuable. It's because they were never supposed to be the source of your strength. The enemy will try to trick you into thinking that people don't approve you, then you must not be worthy. But the devil is a liar. Before anyone ever celebrated you, heaven had already stamped you. Before they believed in you, God had already equipped you. Before they knew your name, he already wrote your story. You don't need to beg for what has already been decreed. You don't need to borrow strength when you were born with power. Let me tell you, walking in power means learning how to be okay even when no one else understands it. It means waking up and moving forward when the people you thought would hold you up walk away. It means trusting that if God called you, he will sustain you even if every voice around you is silent. You cannot keep attaching your confidence to temporary people. You've got to learn to anchor your soul in the one who doesn't shift, doesn't flake, doesn't leave, doesn't fail. That is where real strength is built. And yes, it stings when people don't support you. Yes, it hurts when the ones you love can't show up for you. But sometimes God allows that so you stop confusing their hands with his hand. So you stop waiting on their yes when you already have his. So you stop depending on their energy when you've got the Holy Spirit breathing inside of you. Because if you can only walk strong when someone else is holding you, you'll never know the weight of the power God put in you. So stop chasing applause. Stop begging for validation. Stop borrowing strength from people who were never assigned to hold it for you. You don't need their agreement to be powerful. You don't need their understanding to be chosen. You don't need their permission to step into your calling. Everything you need to walk boldly, to stand firmly, to move freely is already inside of you. When we talk about walking in power, a lot of us get stuck because we think it means we have to be perfect. We imagine that walking strong in God means never stumbling, never questioning, never having moments of weakness. But that's not the truth. To walk in power doesn't mean you float through life flawless. It means you keep moving even when the weight is heavy, even when the steps aren't steady, even when the road is uncertain. Walking means progress, not perfection. It means putting one foot in front of the other, even if your legs are trembling. Some of you have disqualified yourselves because you think you've messed up too much. You feel like the moment you stumbled, you lost your right to walk with confidence. But listen, falling doesn't make you powerless. Staying down does. Power is not proven by the absence of struggle, but by the refusal to let the struggle define your future. Every time you get up again, you're walking in power. Every time you wipe your tears and try one more time, you're walking in power. Every time you pray through the pain instead of giving up, you're walking in power. We've been fed this idea to be strong in God means we have to have it all together. But some of the most powerful walks are the messy ones. The walk where you're still figuring it out, still healing, still learning, but you don't quit. Think about it. The child who is learning to walk doesn't stop just because they fall. They fall, they get back up, they try again. And each step, no matter how shaky, builds strength. That's what it looks like to walk in power. You may stumble, but every time you rise, you're stronger than before. There's a kind of courage in simply continuing because life will always give you reasons to stop. The enemy will always whisper that you're too broken, too flawed, too late. But the fact that you're still moving proves he hasn't won. You might not be sprinting right now, but you're still standing, still pressing, still believing. That's power. Don't measure your walk against somebody else's pace. Some people may look like they're running ahead, but God didn't call you to run their race. He called you to walk your own. And even if your walk is slow, it's still progress. We need to stop waiting for the day when everything feels perfect to move forward. If you're waiting for a season where you'll never feel afraid, never feel tired, never feel inadequate, you'll be waiting forever. Power shows up in the steps you take despite those feelings. Power is saying, I don't have it all figured out, but I'm still going. Power is saying, I don't feel worthy, but I know I'm chosen, so I'll take another step. Power is saying, the storm hasn't stopped, but I'm not going to stop either. That's how you walk in the authority God gave you, by moving forward even when it doesn't look perfect. And let me say this, stumbling is not failure. Falling is not the end. Sometimes God allows you to stumble to show you where your strength actually comes from. If you never tripped, you'd think it was all you. If you never fell, you'd never know He's the one who keeps pulling you back up. Your imperfection becomes the place where His power is revealed. So stop condemning yourself for not being perfect. Perfection was never the assignment. Progress was. I know some of you feel like you've been taking 2 steps forward and 3 steps back. You wonder if you're ever really moving at all, but don't let the setbacks fool you. Every time you rise after a fall, you're not starting from the same place. You're rising with more wisdom, with more resilience, with more strength than before. Even when it feels like you're moving in circles, God is building something in you through every stumble. He's shaping your character, strengthening your faith, and teaching you that power isn't about walking without flaws, but walking without quitting. So don't despise your shaky steps. Don't minimize the fact that you kept going when it would have been easier to give up. Don't discredit the days when all you could do was crawl, because crawl or walk, you still moved. And that is what power looks like in real life. It's not polished. It's not perfect. It's not always pretty, but it's faithful. And faithfulness always produces fruit. Here's the thing. Sometimes we make the mistake of thinking the power God placed in us is just about our own breakthrough, our own survival, our own victory. But the truth is, what He gave you was never meant to stop with you. The power inside of you is generational. It's communal. It's designed to spill over. God didn't pour His Spirit into you so you could sit in the corner and shine by yourself. He poured it into you so others could see the light when everything around them feels dark. Somebody needs to know that your walk is not just about you. It's about them too. It's about the people watching you who don't even have the courage to believe yet. It's about the ones silently struggling, waiting for proof that it's possible to survive what they're going through. When you walk in the power God gave you, you become living evidence that it can be done. You become a roadmap for someone else's deliverance. You become a lifeline for someone else's faith. Have you ever noticed how your story resonates most when you tell the part you wanted to hide? That's because power isn't just in your highlight reel. It's in your testimony. It's in your scars. It's in your perseverance. The very things you thought disqualified you are the things that will free someone else. Somebody is waiting on your obedience to walk in power because they need to see it lived out before they can believe it for themselves. And I get it. Sometimes it feels like too much responsibility. You don't want the weight of being someone else's example. You don't want the pressure of being someone's proof. But hear me. It's not about being perfect. It's about being available. When you choose to walk in power, you show others that even broken vessels can carry glory, that even flawed people can be chosen, that even weary souls can still rise. You're not called to perform perfection. You're called to reveal possibility. Think about how many times God used one person's obedience to unlock freedom for an entire group of people. Moses led a nation out of bondage. Esther's courage saved her people. Paul's letters became the foundation of faith for generations. None of them walked for themselves alone. Their power was never theirs to hoard. It was always meant to overflow. And the same is true for you. The oil on your life isn't just for your healing. It's for the people connected to you. The strength in your steps isn't just for your journey. It's for the ones following behind you. Sometimes the enemy tries to convince you to keep your power small because he knows it's not just about you. He knows if you ever fully embrace what God placed inside of you, other people will be set free because of it. That's why the warfare feels so heavy. That's why the attacks come so strong, because he knows your walk is a chain-breaking walk. He knows your obedience has ripple effects. He knows your light will pierce darkness in places you may never even step foot in, simply because you chose to keep walking. So when you feel like giving up, remind yourself, it's bigger than me. When you feel like hiding, remember, somebody needs to see me shine so they can believe they're not too far gone. When you feel like shrinking, know your courage may be the permission someone else needs to take their first step. You never know who is watching your walk, but you can be sure that your walk matters more than you think. The power God gave you is communal by design. It's meant to inspire, to heal, to restore, to awaken something in others. And you don't have to carry that as a burden. It's a privilege to know that the way you keep standing, the way you keep moving, the way you keep believing is breathing life into someone else. That's what it means to truly walk in power, not just for yourself, but for everyone who needs hope that it can be done.